Hey YouTube, this is the Art of Prepping. Thanks for joining me. I just want to talk about the fallacy of using the recommended dietary allowance if you're trying to do and maintain good health. And so let's go back to World War II. Now in World War II there was a lot of rationing going on, and there was some concern, not just for the citizens that were being rationed, but for the military as well as the various different types of relief organizations trying to provide relief on how much nutrition should be allocated to people, especially over the course of 24 hours. Now, there was a group of people that were part of the U.S. National Academy of Sciences. Some of these individuals that helped develop the RDA, as we know it now, the Recommended Dietary Allowances, was Linda Roberts, Hazel Strebling, and Helen Mitchell. Now, this group in the U.S. National Academy of Sciences was renamed in 1941 as the Food and Nutrition Board. It was once again used for the civilian uses. So when some of the countries that were actually having rations, that this could be at least recommended to them, and military and relief efforts. Now, the final set of guidelines was set in place later in that year, in 1941, that we still have today. And so we fast forward a little bit, and we actually come into, in 1968, the RDA, the Recommended Daily Intake. And this was supposedly good for sufficient healthy individuals. And this was used to determine the daily value, the DV, that we see today on food labels. Now, the thing is, though, is that the daily values have been the same since 1968 and have not been updated today. But what has been changed a little bit was the RDA, the Recommended Dietary Allowance that you should get on a day-by-day level. So there's been 4 updates of the RDA since 1968, and that's been in 1968 there was another one after it was released. They did a small modification, and then again in 1974, 1980, and 1989. And what's interesting is that that the original types of experiments or testing trying to figure out what the recommended daily intake should be, and going even further back to the original types of investigative, clinical research with the recommended dietary allowance, especially in World War II, that it shows that there was a lot of animals that were used to extrapolate what we think should be that dietary level of each nutrient. The problem is that rats, which were used in these experiments, to my understanding, actually have a different need than humans because we're different species. So there's a problem there. And there's also various vitamins, like vitamin C, that has been shown to be totally different in animals, especially like rats, that if they are deficient, they don't have the same effects as we as humans. So what they typically did was, mainly in rats, they would take whatever that the rat could function well with, the level of nutrients, after it was isolated, and they would just extrapolate it to what they would consider a human weight, human body weight that was healthy. For example, maybe they would say for men, it could be 154 pounds. So they would just do a multiple of that nutrient to get to the same weight. So they would just take the weight of the rat versus the weight of the human. And that's how they got it. Now, this is kind of crazy because it's not the same species as, once again. And so there was an evolution of this, of these nutritional guidelines, so to speak, over the years. And it started out with the basic 7, and then it went to the basic 4. And then the government was like, no, let's do the food guide pyramid. And then that didn't really work out because a lot of people were in uproar about, oh, okay, it looks like there's a lot of special interest and a lot of people in the FDA that was being manipulated by various types of groups, maybe farmers, maybe just various different groups. So special interest was a problem. So they went to my pyramid. to customize it supposedly to you. And then they said, okay, that still isn't enough. We need to go to My Plate. So they went from My Pyramid to My Plate. And then here in around 2010, this is the latest version of what the government thinks that this is how you should eat. They call it the Dietary Guidelines for Americans. Now, this is all very good and all, but the fact is that there is special interest, and there's a lot of different lobbyists that push for their products. It could be for grains or whatever it is, to be at a different level on the food pyramid, or at least recommended in higher amounts, so that they can actually promote that. And so it supposedly will influence the Americans to eat more of it, even though it may not be good for you, at least in the amounts that they're asking about, or they're trying to tell you. And so what's happened is that we have a disbalance, or imbalance, I should say, of various foods that are being promoted in levels that are not necessary. In some cases, not necessary at all. So what are we supposed to do about this? Well, in short, we need to investigate on an individual level of what kind of nutrition that we really need, and not be swayed by what the government says per se at all, because they already have been known, and it's been shown that they've been manipulated from the inside. So the first thing you can do is to eat a wide range of foods. That's going to really give you a more diverse type of nutrition for your body. So your body has the basic building blocks to do what it needs to do to fight off diseases, prevent diseases, rebuild the body, and give it what it needs to function correctly. Now, because of the depletion in our soils, especially our farmlands, they have not been cared for properly because of the overuse over time of commercial agriculture. A lot of the soils don't have the actual nutrients that can be absorbed by the plants. So a lot of those plants are pretty anemic, if you will. So you're going to have to supplement. And of course, the going to Walmart and getting just a big value pack of 1,000 supplements for like $5, that's not going to work. Most of those nutrients are not going to be bioavailable. They don't even break down sometimes in the body. You're not going to get much out of them. So if you only spend 2 or 3 cents of vitamin, you're only going to get about 2 or 3 cents of worth of anything, which is pretty much nothing. So you'd want to investigate real nutrients. And this goes into the research about, for your age, weight, and health, what your body really needs. You need to investigate this on an individual level. Now, some different sources to go to. Mercola, Mercola. Mercola has an awesome website. You can search in the website. You can look up pretty much anything you want in terms of health. This is where I've been going for many years to get information. Intermittent fasting, this is where I go to get a lot of that information. But it's a great resource for nutrition. And they have their own guidelines of what they would recommend. And it's based on real evidence, real science, decades of investigative types of health and nutrition, types of sciences that are based in facts. The other site that I would recommend is Critical Health News. It's a little bit more difficult to navigate that site, but they do have a hotline number, and you can actually call someone and ask questions. Health-related questions, especially about nutrients. It's very cool, and that's all free to do that. So let's go back to Mercola. So what does Dr. Mercola and his large staff of other doctors and nutritionists recommend? It's very interesting because they pretty much take the old food pyramid and put it upside down in a lot of ways. Now, on the very top, it's your grains and sugar. Once again, grains and sugar are on the top of the pyramid. The next level is fruits. The next level is proteins. And on the very bottom, the base of the pyramid, are your healthy fats and vegetables. This is kind of different in a lot of ways from the pyramid that we've been known to be told as good and healthy. Now, in terms of things that they talk about on the Mercola site, which I totally agree, and this is based on, once again, lots of hard science and lots of evidence just for health, things that you don't really probably want to hear about, but once again, it's just there, regardless if you want it to be there or not. So the things that they want you to avoid, and of course, there's also a list on Critical Health News of very, very similar, almost the exact same things. So that's why I love these sites, because they go hand in hand. Even though they're coming from totally different sources, they have the same results. But on the Mercola site, they have very specifically canned tomatoes. And this is coming from like the metal cans that have the BPA liner, which most cans these days, unless it says BPA free, that has BPA. Trust me. And so what happens is in these canned tomatoes, that the tomatoes has a very high acidity level, and the high acidic nature of the tomato breaks down the lining to some degree, and it helps leach the BPA from the liner into the food. So that's no good. The next thing is processed meats. And once again, even over there on Critical Health News, they scream on the top of their lungs, do not eat processed meat because it has nitrates and nitrites. And they've been shown very clearly. In fact, just recently, even the World Health Organization, which you kind of have to watch what they say, but even they said that it's very deadly and dangerous and increases your chances for cancer greatly, almost as the same as asbestos and cigarettes. That should be a red flag right there. Processed meat should never be in your grocery cart. The next thing is margarine. And the next one also is going to be some of the same reasoning, which is going to be vegetable oil. Now, margarine and vegetable oil obviously are oil-based. Of course, margarine typically is vegetable oil produced. And the reason why this is dangerous is because it oxidizes. When it oxidizes, it becomes inflammatory. And we've talked about this on the channel, but this is why you'd avoid it. If you have like arthritis or any type of ailment, typically it has a foundation in either being from a nutrient deficiency or inflammation. That's pretty much almost all disease states are like that. So you want to avoid margarine and vegetable oils. The next thing would be microwave popcorn. There's a lot of ingredients in microwave popcorn which are, been shown to be cancer, promoting, if you will. And also a lot of those supposedly oils in there, which are mostly vegetable oils, are also can oxidize and be very unhealthy and cause inflammatory reactions in the body. So we have also next is going to be aspartame and other artificial sweeteners. Regardless, we don't have to go into detail on that. We know that's bad. That's definitely a toxin, and it's been shown a lot of different ways to show and promote cancer and other things. Non-organic potatoes and produce. We don't want the built-in genetically modified herbicides and pesticides in our food, so obviously we'd avoid those. He also recommends to avoid table salt. Now you may be saying, what is wrong with table salt? It's because there's no iodine. You want to go ahead and maybe look for things like the Himalayan pink salt, various different types of sea salts that have a higher content of iodine. Iodine is an essential nutrient. You need it for thyroid and all kinds of various uses for your glandular needs in your body. So you want something that has iodine in it. And then the last thing we're going to go through to avoid is soy protein isolate. Or also, you can also say unfermented soy products. When it's unfermented like that, basically it's very difficult for the body to break down. In most cases, you can't break it down. And so it causes a lot of problems in the gut. So unless it's fermented, you don't really want that in terms of soy. So this is just hopefully a recap of just looking at in a snapshot of how the FDA is manipulated, how it's been put out propaganda on nutrients and nutrition in general. And you should be very, very careful, because any type of government body or any group at all that changes every so many years the information they put out in the form of various different types of, let's recap here, the basic 7, the basic 4, the food guide pyramid, my plate, dietary guidelines for America. Anytime that you have groups that change that much every few years, then you know that they don't have a foundation built in truth. So just everyone be aware of that. Search out for yourself what nutrition's all about. This is a very large element. If you have different types of issues, health problems, yes, you could always say, well, it's because you have stress or you don't get enough sleep. Maybe you have something in the water that's polluted and you're sick. But look at your food as well. And look at some of your habits. If you're a smoker, that could be a problem. But in particular, your food and your nutrients is the major element. It may be the single most element of your health overall, because it is the building blocks of who you are. When you eat that food, it actually becomes a part of you. And so that doesn't get more serious than that. That's pretty much the definition of health. Is when they talk about you are what you eat, I mean, that is literal, and you must take it to heart. And so how does all this fit in with prepping and preparation? Well, I can tell you, my friends, that if you're not healthy and if you don't have a good store of food that's based on reality, and if you don't know how to care for yourself and get your nutrients in your body and know what kind of nutrition your body even needs, you're not going to excel. You're not going to be someone that can benefit from the knowledge that's out there. You're going to be someone that's going to suffer in ways that's needless. And so this is a way to curtail that, to live longer, to actually have a higher level of functioning, just to enjoy life in general. So even if we never use our preps, even if from now on there is never one more emergency in the world, which is unlikely and of course it's unrealistic, but even if everything was perfect from here on out, at least you're eating well. At least you have things, that's going to give you your nutritional needs that you actually really do need. It's not, they don't call it nutritional needs for nothing. It's not about just trying to fill your belly. It's about actually giving your body those raw materials once again so it can function, so you can have a quality of life. Thanks for all your support. Leave some comments down below if you would about what you think about this video. And if you kind of, if you feel the same way, that you think that Dr. Mercola and over there at Critical Health News, Dr. Wallach is hitting the right button, hitting the truth button, I think they are. Thanks for watching.